When you awaken in the morning, before the mind rushes in with its familiar inventory of worries, responsibilities, and unfinished business, there is a quiet moment available to you. It is subtle. It is easily overlooked. Yet in that moment lives a power that has shaped galaxies, breathed life into forests, and guided your heart through every chapter of your existence. This power does not shout, it whispers. And the language it speaks most fluently is gratitude. Gratitude is not a polite response to life when things go your way. It is a state of alignment with the intelligence that creates and sustains all things. It is a way of remembering who you really are before the world taught you to measure yourself by achievement, comparison, and fear. When you begin your day with gratitude, you are not trying to change reality. You are changing your relationship with reality. And that is where miracles quietly begin. As you sit with these words, allow yourself to soften. Let the breath move naturally in and out of your body. Notice that you are alive, not conceptually, not philosophically, but actually alive in this moment. Your heart is beating without your permission. Your lungs are breathing without effort. Your body knows how to exist. Your soul knows how to guide. This alone is worthy of gratitude. You do not have to earn it. You do not have to deserve it. Existence itself is a gift that has already been given. Gratitude is the decision to see life not as a series of problems to be solved, but as a field of experiences meant to awaken you. When you say, "I am grateful," you are affirming trust in the flow of life. You are declaring that you are willing to release the illusion of control and step into cooperation with something far wiser than the egoic mind. The ego says, "I will be grateful when everything works out." The soul says, "Everything works out when I am grateful." There is a profound shift that occurs when you stop postponing peace. When you no longer say, "I will be calm when this situation changes," or "I will be happy when I arrive somewhere else." Gratitude brings you home to now. And now is the only place where life is actually happening. The past is a memory, the future is a projection, but this moment is alive, responsive, and infinitely creative. As you begin your day, gently affirm within yourself that everything is working out for you. Not because you can predict the outcome, but because you trust the process. Trust does not mean you understand the path. It means you are willing to walk it without resistance. Resistance is the belief that life should be different from what it is. Gratitude dissolves resistance by reminding you that life is not happening to you, but through you. You are not here to battle the world. You are here to align with it. When you align your thoughts with appreciation, your nervous system relaxes, your perception widens, and your intuition becomes clearer. Gratitude is not passive. It is an active frequency. It reorganizes the mind. It softens the heart. It restores harmony between your inner world and the outer experience. Say to yourself, quietly or aloud, "I am grateful for this day," not because you know what it will bring, but because you trust that whatever it brings is part of your unfolding. The universe does not make mistakes. It responds to consciousness. And consciousness that is rooted in gratitude attracts experiences that reflect that inner state. Everything works out for you not because life is always comfortable, but because life is always instructive. Sometimes what works out looks like a door opening. Sometimes it looks like a door closing. The ego resists endings, but the soul understands transitions. Gratitude allows you to bless both. It frees you from the exhausting habit of labeling experiences as good or bad and invites you into a deeper wisdom where everything is recognized as purposeful. When challenges arise, gratitude does not deny them. It contextualizes them. It reminds you that you have survived every difficult moment you have ever faced. It reminds you that strength is not something you acquire in the absence of struggle, but something you discover in the presence of it. Gratitude says, "I trust myself to meet this moment." And that trust is transformative. There is an intelligence moving through you that knows exactly how to heal, how to grow, and how to evolve. When you are grateful, you step out of the way of that intelligence. You stop micromanaging life. You stop insisting that things unfold according to your limited understanding. You allow yourself to be guided. And guidance does not always come as clarity. Often it comes as a feeling of peace in uncertainty. Everything works out for you when you stop arguing with reality. When you release the need to be right, to be validated, to be ahead. Gratitude gently loosens the grip of the ego and reminds you that your worth is not negotiable. You are enough before you accomplished anything. You will be enough regardless of how today unfolds. Gratitude anchors you in that truth. As you move through your morning, notice how gratitude shifts your energy. It changes the way you listen. It changes the way you speak. It changes the way you move through space. People can feel it. Situation will respond to it. Not because you are trying to manipulate outcomes, but because you are aligned with the same creative force that animates all life. Gratitude is a form of prayer without words. It is an acknowledgement that you are supported, even when you cannot see how. It is the recognition that you are not alone in your journey, that there is an unseen order beneath the surface of appearances. When you trust this order, fear loses its authority, anxiety dissolves, and a quiet confidence takes its place. Everything works out for you when you remember that you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are habits of attention, not statements of truth. Gratitude gently redirects attention away from scarcity and toward abundance. Not the abundance of possessions, but the abundance of presence, breath, awareness, and possibility. From that space, inspired action naturally arises. You do not have to force positivity. Forced positivity is just another form of resistance. Gratitude is different. It is honest. It includes the full spectrum of experience and chooses appreciation anyway. It says, even this has something to teach me. And in that openness, healing occurs. When you begin your day with gratitude, you are setting an intention for how you wish to experience life. You are choosing to see beyond appearances and trust the deeper movement of things. You are affirming that your inner state matters more than external circumstances. And that affirmation is powerful. Everything works out for you because you are part of something infinitely intelligent and benevolent. You are not separate from it. You are an expression of it. Gratitude is simply the act of remembering that truth, and remembrance is the beginning of awakening. So as this day unfolds, carry gratitude with you, not as a technique, but as a way of being. Let it guide your thoughts, soften your reactions, and open your heart. When you forget, gently return. There is no failure here, only practice. Only remembering again and again. Everything works out for you because you are willing to trust life rather than fight it. Because you are willing to meet each moment with appreciation rather than fear. Because you are aligned with your higher self, which has never doubted your worth or your path. Begin again, here and now, with gratitude, and watch how life responds. Not with spectacle, but with a quiet unfolding that feels unmistakably right. Stay with this awareness as the day continues to breathe itself through you, because gratitude is not something you finish practicing once the morning ends. It is a way of walking through time without being owned by it. Each moment offers you a choice to contract into judgment or to expand into appreciation. And every time you choose appreciation, even softly, even imperfectly, you step back into alignment with the truth of who you are. Notice how life begins to feel less like a series of demands and more like a dialogue. Gratitude turns existence into a conversation rather than a confrontation. You are no longer pushing against what is. You are listening for what is being asked of you. This listening is subtle. It does not always arrive as words or answers. Sometimes it arrives as a calm knowing, a gentle nudge, or a quiet sense that you are exactly where you need to be. When the mind tries to pull you back into old stories of lack or fear, greet those thoughts with kindness rather than resistance. Resistance gives them strength. Gratitude dissolves them. You can simply say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I choose trust." And in that choice, the nervous system settles, the body relaxes, and the soul resumes its natural leadership. Everything works out for you when you stop demanding that life prove itself before you feel safe. Gratitude is the willingness to feel safe now without guarantees. It is a declaration that peace is an inside job, and from that peace, clarity emerges. Decisions become simpler. You begin to sense what aligns and what does not through force, but through feeling. There is a rhythm to life that you cannot hear when you are rushing or resisting. Gratitude slows you down just enough to feel that rhythm again. It reminds you that growth does not happen through pressure, but through allowance. Seeds do not strain to become trees. They trust the process of light, soil, and time. You are no different. When you trust, you grow naturally. As situations unfold today, some may meet your preferences and some may challenge them. Gratitude does not mean you pretend everything is pleasant. It means you remain present and open regardless. Presence is where your power lives. not in controlling outcomes, but in responding consciously. Gratitude keeps you rooted in that presence. Everything works out for you because every experience is refining your awareness. Even moments of discomfort are shaping you, teaching you where you still hold resistance and where you are ready to release. Gratitude turns lessons into blessings, not by changing their form, but by changing your relationship to them. You may notice that when you are grateful, time feels different. The urgency softens. The need to rush dissolves. You become less concerned with getting somewhere else and more interested in fully inhabiting where you are. This is not complacency. This is mastery. It is the understanding that fulfillment is not found in the future, but revealed in the depth of your attention now. Gratitude also reconnects you to others in a profound way. When you are appreciative, you stop seeing people as obstacles or tools for your validation. You begin to see them as fellow travelers, each carrying their own fears, hopes, and lessons. Compassion naturally arises, and compassion lightens the heart. Everything works out for you when you remember that love is the underlying force of the universe. Fear is loud, but it is not powerful. Love is quiet, steady, and infinitely creative. Gratitude aligns you with love because it acknowledges the good that already exists, even when it is not obvious. You are not here to perfect yourself. You are here to remember yourself. Gratitude is remembrance. It brings you back to the awareness that you are already whole, already guided, already supported. From that knowing, effort becomes inspired rather than forced. As the day moves forward, let gratitude be the lens through which you interpret experience. Not rigidly, not dogmatically, but gently. When something unexpected happens, pause and ask, what is this showing me? That question opens space. And in space, wisdom enters. Everything works out for you because you are willing to surrender the illusion that you must control everything to be okay. Surrender is not giving up. It is giving over. It is trusting that life knows what it is doing, even when the mind does not. Carry this with you now. Let gratitude become the background music of your day, subtle but steady. You will find that when gratitude is present, fear cannot dominate, resentment cannot take root, and joy no longer feels conditional. And when the day begins to close, you may realize that nothing extraordinary needed to happen for it to feel meaningful. The meaning was always there, waiting for your attention. Gratitude revealed it. Everything works out for you because you are aligned with the flow of life itself. And life, when met with trust and appreciation, always knows how to take care of its own. There is a deeper layer to gratitude that reveals itself when you stop using it as a response and begin living it as an identity. At this level, gratitude is no longer something you do when circumstances are favorable. It becomes the inner climate from which you experience everything. You begin to sense that life is not testing you, punishing you, or withholding from you. Life is shaping you. And when you understand this, the need to struggle softens into a willingness to participate. You start to feel that gentle intelligence moving through even the smallest details of your day. A pause in conversation that allows insight to rise. A delay that protects you from what you cannot yet see. An unexpected meeting that shifts your perspective just enough to redirect your path. Gratitude sharpens your awareness of these subtleties. It teaches you to notice without grasping, to receive without demanding, to trust without knowing how. The mind often wants certainty, but the soul thrives on faith. Not blind belief, but a quiet confidence that you are being carried by something larger than your plans. Gratitude nourishes this confidence. It loosens the grip of the ego, which believes safety comes from control, and gently reminds you that real security comes from alignment. When you are aligned, you do not need guarantees. You feel supported from within. As you move through life in this state, you may notice that your reactions begin to change. Situations that once triggered frustration or fear no longer have the same hold on you. Not because you have numbed yourself, but because you have expanded beyond them. Gratitude creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, you rediscover your freedom. Freedom does not mean the absence of challenges. It means the absence of inner resistance. When you are grateful, you meet life openly rather than defensively. You stop asking, why is this happening to me, and begin asking, how is this serving my awakening? That question alone transforms the quality of your experience. It turns obstacles into invitations and uncertainty into exploration. There is a quiet joy that emerges when you stop measuring your life against expectations and start honoring it as it is. This joy is not excitement. It is not dependent on external success. It is a deep sense of rightness that comes from being present with yourself without judgment. Gratitude anchors you in that presence. It says, this moment is enough. And in doing so, it frees you from the endless pursuit of more. You may also begin to notice how gratitude reshapes your sense of time. The future no longer feels like something you must race toward, and the past loses its power to define you. You recognize that who you are is not a product of what happened before, but an expression of what you choose now. Gratitude brings you back to this choice again and again. Everything works out for you because you are learning to trust the unfolding rather than forcing the outcome. When you stop pushing against life, life begins to move with you. Doors open not because you demand them to, but because you are ready to walk through. Paths reveal themselves, not because you planned every step, but because you listened. Gratitude also deepens your connection to yourself. You begin to appreciate your own resilience, your sensitivity, your capacity to grow. You stop criticizing yourself for not being further along and start honoring how far you have already come. This self-appreciation is not arrogance. It is respect for the journey your soul has chosen. As this respect grows, so does patience. You no longer rush your healing or compare your progress to others. You understand that every soul moves at its own pace, guided by its own wisdom. Gratitude allows you to rest in that understanding without anxiety. There is a quiet power in trusting that you are exactly where you need to be, not because everything is perfect, but because this moment contains what you need for the next step. Gratitude reveals that truth not as an idea, but as a felt experience. You sense it in the body. You feel it in the breath. You recognize it as a calm steadiness beneath the surface of change. And from this steadiness, life continues to unfold in ways that feel increasingly meaningful. Not always easier, but clearer. Not always predictable, but purposeful. Gratitude does not promise comfort. It offers clarity, and clarity is what allows you to move forward without fear. So remain open, remain receptive. Let gratitude continue to guide you, not as a practice you must remember to do, but as a natural expression of who you are becoming. With each moment of appreciation, you align more deeply with your higher self. And from that alignment, life responds with a quiet assurance that everything in its own time and way is indeed working out for you. There comes a moment, often unnoticed, when gratitude stops feeling like something you are cultivating and begins to feel like something that is carrying you. You realize you are no longer reminding yourself to trust life. You are resting inside that trust. The effort drops away, the inner dialogue softens, and in that softening, a deeper intelligence takes the lead. This is the intelligence that has been guiding you long before you had language for it, long before you learned to doubt yourself, long before you mistook anxiety for preparation and control for safety. In this space, you begin to sense that your life is not a problem to be fixed, but a mystery to be lived. Gratitude keeps you intimate with that mystery. It invites you to stay curious rather than fearful, receptive rather than rigid. You no longer rush to label experiences or rush past moments of stillness. You allow life to reveal itself at its own pace, trusting that nothing meaningful is ever truly delayed. You may notice that when gratitude becomes your inner posture, the world seems to respond differently, not because circumstances instantly change, but because your perception does. What once felt like chaos now feels like movement. What once felt like loss now feels like redirection. What once felt like uncertainty now carries a quiet sense of possibility. Gratitude does not blind you to difficulty. It gives you the eyes to see beyond it. There is a profound humility that arises here, and with it, a deep peace. You stop insisting that life conform to your preferences, and instead, you begin to cooperate with its wisdom. This cooperation is not passive. It is alive, attentive, and responsive. You take action when action is called for, and you wait when waiting is required. Gratitude sharpens your discernment. It helps you feel the difference between effort that is aligned and effort that is driven by fear. As this discernment grows, so does your compassion for yourself. You stop punishing yourself for moments of doubt or hesitation. You understand that awakening is not a straight line, but a gentle spiral of remembering. Gratitude allows you to meet yourself exactly where you are, without shame, without impatience. And in that meeting, healing unfolds naturally. You begin to experience a subtle but powerful shift in identity. You no longer see yourself primarily as a personality navigating external events. You begin to recognize yourself as awareness itself, witnessing experience without being consumed by it. Gratitude anchors you in this awareness. It reminds you that you are not defined by what passes through you, but by the consciousness that observes it all. From this vantage point, life feels less heavy. You are still engaged, still caring, still participating fully, but without the exhausting need to control every outcome. You trust that what is meant for you cannot miss you, and what misses you was never meant to stay. This trust does not make you passive, it makes you peaceful. Gratitude also refines your sense of purpose. You stop searching for meaning as something outside of you, something to be achieved later, somewhere else. You begin to feel that meaning is generated moment by moment through presence, kindness, and awareness. You realize that how you show up matters more than where you end up. Gratitude keeps you anchored in this truth. As the emotional arc of your day continues to unfold, you may find yourself more willing to pause, to breathe, to feel. You are less inclined to numb discomfort or rush past vulnerability. Gratitude gives you the courage to stay open, and openness is where transformation occurs, not through force, but through allowing. There is a quiet elegance to living this way. You are no longer fighting the current of life, nor are you floating aimlessly. You are moving with intention, guided by an inner compass that grows clearer with each moment of appreciation. Gratitude fine-tunes that compass. It keeps you oriented toward what is real, what is enduring, what is true. And so the rhythm continues, breath by breath, moment by moment. Gratitude weaving itself into your thoughts, your movements, your choices. You may not always notice it, but you will feel its effects. A steadier heart, a calmer mind, a deeper trust in the unfolding of your life. Everything works out for you not as a dramatic declaration, but as a lived experience. A quiet knowing that no matter what arises, you are equipped to meet it. That you are supported in ways both seen and unseen. That you are part of a larger harmony that does not rush, does not panic, and does not fail. Stay here. Stay present. Let gratitude continue to shape you from the inside out. And as it does, you will find that life, in all its complexity and beauty, meets you with the same openness you offer it. As this inner alignment deepens, you may begin to sense that gratitude is quietly dissolving old tensions you once carried without question. Not by revisiting them or analyzing them, but by gently loosening their grip, you realize that much of what once felt heavy was never meant to be carried indefinitely. It was meant to be noticed, learned from, and released. Gratitude creates the inner conditions for that release. It does not force forgetting, it invites freedom. You begin to experience a softer relationship with uncertainty. What once felt like a threat now feels like an open field. You no longer demand to know how everything will unfold in order to move forward. You move because movement itself feels natural again. Gratitude restores this naturalness. It brings you back into rhythm with life, where intuition replaces anxiety and trust replaces tension. In this rhythm, you may notice that your desires begin to change. The need to prove, to compete, to accumulate begins to lose its urgency. Not because you stop caring, but because you start caring more deeply about what actually nourishes you. Gratitude clarifies values. It helps you recognize the difference between what satisfies the ego and what sustains the soul. There is also a growing awareness that you are not separate from the world around you. The same intelligence that moves your breath moves the wind through trees and the tides across oceans. Gratitude reconnects you to this unity, not as an abstract idea, but as a lived experience. You feel less alone, even in silence. You sense companionship and stillness. From this place, forgiveness begins to emerge naturally, not as a moral obligation, but as a practical decision to release yourself from the weight of resentment. Gratitude reveals how much energy has been tied up in holding on to old narratives. When you let them go, that energy becomes available for creativity, for presence, for joy. Forgiveness becomes less about others and more about honoring your own peace. You may also find that gratitude softens your relationship with effort. You still act, still plan, still participate fully in life, but without the constant pressure to make things happen. Action becomes an expression of alignment rather than urgency. You do what feels right, when it feels right, and trust that timing is not something you must manage. Gratitude keeps you attuned to this timing. As this way of being continues to unfold, a quiet confidence settles in, not the loud confidence of certainty, but the steady confidence of trust. You begin to sense that no experience is wasted, no moment is meaningless, even pauses have purpose. Even silence has something to say. Gratitude teaches you to listen. You also become more present to beauty in ordinary moments, the way light moves across a room, the sound of your own breath, the simplicity of being here, now. Gratitude sharpens perception. It reveals richness where the mind once saw only routine. Life feels fuller, not because more is happening, but because you are more available to what is happening. And in this availability, you begin to feel a deeper sense of belonging, not belonging to a group or an idea, but belonging to life itself. You are no longer standing apart, observing from a distance. You are participating fully with an open heart and a grounded presence. Gratitude anchors you in this participation. Everything continues to work out for you, not as a promise of ease, but as a reassurance of meaning. You trust that whatever arises is contributing to your growth, your understanding, your awakening. You no longer measure your life by outcomes alone, but by the quality of awareness you bring to each moment. So you keep moving forward, not with haste, but with intention, not with fear, but with openness. Gratitude becomes less something you remember to practice and more something that lives quietly beneath your thoughts, guiding you without effort. And as the flow continues, you sense that this way of being is not temporary. It is not a phase or a mood. It is a remembering, a return to a natural state of trust, presence, and appreciation that has always been available to you. Remain here in this unfolding. Let the rhythm carry you. Let gratitude continue to reveal itself in deeper and subtler ways. And trust that as you stay aligned with this inner knowing, life will continue to meet you with the same gentle intelligence that has been guiding you all along. There is a quiet wisdom that lives beneath all the noise of your thinking, beneath the urgency of your plans, beneath the restless habit of trying to control what has never truly been yours to manage. It speaks softly, patiently, without urgency or force, and it has been speaking to you your entire life. It says, in a voice that feels more like remembering than learning, that life is not asking you to wrestle it into submission. Life is asking you to trust it. Most of the suffering we experience does not come from what happens to us, but from the tension we create by resisting what is. Resistance is subtle. It disguises itself as responsibility, as vigilance, as being prepared. But beneath it lies a quiet fear, the belief that if you loosen your grip, everything will fall apart. And yet, the opposite has always been true. The tighter you cling, the more strained life becomes. The moment you soften, something extraordinary begins to happen. Imagine trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The harder you squeeze, the faster it escapes you. But when you open your hand, when you allow it to rest gently in your palm, it remains. Life responds the same way. It flows toward openness, not force. It aligns with surrender, not struggle. Letting go is not giving up. It is giving in to something wiser than the ego's need to dominate outcomes. It is recognizing that there is an intelligence moving through the universe that has been orchestrating galaxies, seasons, heartbeats, and breath long before you arrived with your to-do list and your worries. You did not create this intelligence, and you cannot improve upon it, but you can align with it. The ego resists this idea because it survives on control. The ego believes that your worth is measured by how much you manage, how much you predict, how much you defend yourself against uncertainty. It whispers that if you stop striving, you will be left behind. If you stop worrying, you will be unprepared. If you stop resisting, you will be vulnerable. But vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is openness, and openness is where miracles enter. A miracle is not a violation of natural law. It is a shift in perception. It is what happens when you stop insisting that life conform to your fears and allow yourself to see what has been available all along. When you release resistance, you are not abandoning discernment or wisdom. You are abandoning the illusion that you are separate from the flow of life. Notice how often your mind revisits the past, replaying moments that cannot be changed, rehearsing conversations that have already ended, carrying resentments like heavy stones in your pocket. The past survives only because you keep breathing life into it. And every time you do, you steal energy from the present moment, the only place where peace actually exists. The universe does not operate in yesterday. It operates in now. Healing happens now. Insight happens now. Love happens now. The moment you release your attachment to how things should have been, you reclaim the power to experience how things are. And how things are, when seen without resistance, is often far kinder than the stories you tell yourself. Forgiveness is one of the most profound forms of letting go, not because it excuses behavior, but because it releases you from being emotionally chained to it. There are no justified resentments if your goal is peace. Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to feel the effects. When you forgive, you are not declaring that the past was acceptable. You are declaring that your future matters more than your pain. Surrender is often misunderstood as passivity. In truth, it is the most empowered state you can occupy. When you surrender, you stop arguing with reality. You stop demanding guarantees before you move forward. You trust that the same intelligence that brought you this far has not suddenly abandoned you. Think of a leaf floating down a river. It does not know every bend ahead, nor does it need to. It moves with the current, not against it. When obstacles appear, the water does not panic. It flows around them, reshapes itself, continues onward. You are made of that same intelligence. When you stop resisting, you become fluid again. Fear loses its grip when you realize that uncertainty is not the enemy, it is the doorway. Every transformation you have ever experienced began in uncertainty. You did not know how it would unfold, yet something within you moved anyway. That something was not fear, it was trust. Trust is not blind optimism. It is a deep inner knowing that you are supported by life itself. When you trust the flow of the universe, you are not saying that challenges will disappear. You are saying that you will meet them without the added burden of inner conflict. Healing begins within, always. Not when circumstances change, not when people apologize, not when life becomes predictable. Healing begins the moment you stop resisting the truth of who you are. A divine being having a human experience, temporarily forgetting your origin. You are not here to conquer life. You are here to express it. The mind wants answers. The soul wants alignment. When you align with love instead of fear, with acceptance instead of resistance, your outer world reorganizes itself in ways the rational mind could never predict. This is not mystical exaggeration. It is the natural consequence of harmony. Notice how peace feels when you stop trying to control the next moment. Notice the spaciousness that appears when you allow emotions to pass through you without labeling them as enemies. Emotions are weather patterns, not identities. You are the sky, not the storm. You are already enough, not because you have perfected yourself, but because you were never incomplete. The belief that you must become something else to deserve peace is one of the ego's most persistent illusions. Peace is not a reward for improvement. It is your natural state when you stop resisting yourself. When you release control, you make room for guidance. When you surrender fear, intuition speaks more clearly. When you trust the flow of the universe, life responds with opportunities, connections, and insights that feel almost effortless. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. Miracles often arrive quietly. They do not always announce themselves with fireworks. Sometimes they appear as a gentle shift in perspective, a softened heart, a sense of calm where anxiety once lived. Sometimes the greatest miracle is simply realizing that you no longer need to fight. Acceptance does not mean you approve of everything that happens. It means you stop arguing with the fact that it has happened. From that place of acceptance, wise action becomes possible. From resistance, only exhaustion follows. As you move through life, you will be tempted again and again to tighten your grip, to demand certainty, to resist change. When that happens, pause, breathe. Ask yourself whether your suffering is coming from the situation or from your insistence that it be different. This single question has the power to dissolve years of struggle. Letting go is not a one-time decision. It is a practice, a gentle, daily choice to trust life more than fear, to listen to the soul more than the ego, to flow rather than force. Each time you choose acceptance, you step closer to your true nature. And here is the quiet truth that changes everything. The universe is not testing you. It is responding to you. When you resist, it reflects resistance. When you trust, it reflects support. When you let go, it reveals its generosity. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world alone. You were meant to participate in a dance with life, guided by an intelligence far greater than the thinking mind. When you stop resisting and let go, you do not lose yourself. You finally come home. And in that home, miracles are not rare events. They are simply what happens when you allow life to move through you, unobstructed as it always has. And as you rest in this remembering, something subtle begins to rearrange itself inside you. The urgency softens. The inner voice that once demanded certainty grows quiet, not because it has been silenced, but because it has finally been heard. In that silence, you discover that peace is not something you manufacture through effort. It is something that rises naturally when you stop interfering with your own being. There is a sacred intelligence in pauses. The ego rushes because it believes time is scarce, but the soul knows that timing is precise. When you stop forcing the next step and allow yourself to be present with this one, clarity appears without struggle. Guidance does not shout. It arrives as a gentle nudge, a calm sense of direction, a feeling of resonance rather than pressure. You recognize it not by excitement, but by ease. You may notice how often your thoughts try to negotiate with life, offering conditions for your happiness. I will be peaceful when this changes. I will trust when I have proof. I will let go when I feel safe. But safety does not precede trust. Trust creates safety. The moment you decide to lean into life rather than brace against it, your nervous system responds, your breath deepens, and your body remembers that it belongs here. There is a deep healing that occurs when you stop trying to outrun discomfort and instead allow it to pass through you. Emotions are not obstacles on the path. They are messages asking for acknowledgement. When you meet them with compassion instead of resistance, they complete their purpose and dissolve. What remains is not emptiness, but spaciousness, the kind that allows insight to arrive unannounced. You are not here to perfect the human experience. You are here to experience it fully, without self-condemnation. The moments you judge yourself for struggling are the very moments that call for gentleness. Growth is not linear. Awakening is not a straight ascent. It is a spiral of remembering, forgetting, and remembering again, each time with a little more grace. When you stop insisting on being right, you gain access to being free. The need to be right is a subtle form of resistance, a way the ego protects its identity. But freedom does not require validation. It requires openness. In openness, you discover that you can hold opposing truths without fracture, that life is complex and still benevolent, that you do not need to reduce it to understand it. There is a profound shift that happens when you realize you do not have to chase meaning. Meaning emerges from presence. When you are fully here, washing a dish, listening to a friend, feeling your breath, life reveals itself as sacred without effort. Ordinary moments become luminous when they are met without agenda. You may have been taught to believe that strength looks like endurance without rest, like persistence without softness. Yet true strength is the courage to relax into what is real. It is the willingness to say, I do not know, and remain open. It is the humility to be guided rather than driven. As you release the habit of resistance, you begin to sense a quiet companionship with life. You feel less alone, not because circumstances have changed, but because separation has dissolved. You recognize that the same presence listening to these words is the presence that animates all things. This is not philosophy, it is experience, available whenever you stop arguing with the moment. Letting go does not remove you from the world. It allows you to engage with it more fully, without the armor of fear. You respond rather than react, you choose rather than defend. And in this state, your actions become aligned with love, not obligation. The miracles you seek are not waiting somewhere in the future. They are unfolding now, in the quiet spaces where you choose trust over tension, acceptance over resistance. Each time you soften, you signal to life that you are ready to receive. And life, ever responsive, meets you there. Stay here in this openness. Allow the flow to carry you without needing to know where it leads. You are not being taken away from yourself. You are being returned to what you have always been, whole, supported, and deeply at home in the unfolding mystery of existence. And in this returning, you may notice how the body begins to trust again. The shoulders drop, the jaw loosens, the breath no longer feels like something you must manage, but something that carries you. The body has always known when you are at war with the moment. It tightens in response to your resistance and softens when you allow life to be as it is. Listening to this wisdom is another form of surrender, a way of letting the mind step aside so a deeper intelligence can lead. There is a quiet courage in allowing yourself to feel joy without waiting for permission. The ego often delays happiness as if it must be earned through suffering or justified by achievement. But joy is not a distraction from growth, it is nourishment for it. When you permit yourself to experience lightness without explanation, you affirm your trust in life's benevolence. You declare that well-being does not need a defense. As resistance dissolves, gratitude arises naturally, not as a practice you force, but as a response to seeing clearly. Gratitude is what happens when you recognize how much effort you once spent pushing against what was already carrying you. You begin to notice the quiet supports, the timing that worked out without your planning, the help that arrived unannounced, the inner resilience that appeared when you thought you had none left. These were not accidents. They were always there, waiting for your attention. You may find that your relationships begin to change as well. When you stop resisting yourself, you stop demanding that others complete you, rescue you, or validate your worth. You meet them as they are, not as solutions to your unease. From this place, love becomes less of a transaction and more of a shared presence. You listen more deeply because you are no longer rehearsing your defense. There is a liberation in realizing that you do not need to solve your entire life today. The soul does not work on deadlines. It unfolds with a rhythm that cannot be rushed without distortion. When you align with this rhythm, patience ceases to feel like waiting and becomes a form of participation. You are moving, even when it looks like stillness. In moments of doubt, remember that uncertainty is not a flaw in the design. It is an invitation to trust something beyond your conditioning. The mind seeks closure because it fears the unknown, but the unknown is where creativity lives. When you stop resisting ambiguity, you open yourself to possibilities that certainty would have excluded. You may notice an impulse to return to old habits of control, especially when change feels imminent. Meet that impulse with kindness rather than judgment. Awareness itself is progress. Each time you notice resistance without feeding it, you weaken its hold. You are learning a new way of being, one that does not rely on tension for momentum. As you continue to let go, life feels less like a series of obstacles and more like a conversation. You listen, you respond, you adjust. You are no longer trying to dominate the dialogue. You are participating in it. And participation brings intimacy, a sense that you are not outside of life looking in, but within it, moving as it moves. This is the paradox the ego cannot grasp. When you stop trying to control the flow, you gain access to a deeper form of influence. Your presence becomes coherent. Your intentions align with something larger than personal gain. And from this alignment, your actions carry a quiet power, one that does not need force to be effective. Remain open to this unfolding. Let the next moment arrive without interrogation. You are not surrendering your intelligence, you are expanding it beyond fear. In this expanded awareness, you find that peace is not fragile. It is resilient, steady, and always available when you stop resisting the life that is already offering itself to you. And as this peace settles more deeply, you begin to sense a gentler relationship with effort itself. You still act, still choose, still create, but the strain has fallen away. Action no longer feels like pushing a heavy door uphill. It feels like responding to an inner invitation. You move because it feels true, not because you are afraid of what will happen if you do not. In this way, effort becomes elegant and discipline becomes devotion rather than punishment. There is a subtle dignity in living this way. You stop broadcasting urgency into every moment. You stop trying to prove that you matter by how busy you are or how much you carry. Your value no longer needs reinforcement. It is assumed quietly, the way the sun assumes its place in the sky without asking to be applauded. From this knowing, self-respect replaces self-criticism and compassion replaces comparison. You may notice that your thoughts begin to lose their sharp edges. They still appear, but they no longer command unquestioned authority. You see them as weather passing through awareness, not as orders you must obey. This distance is not indifference, it is wisdom. When you stop resisting thoughts, they lose their urgency. When you stop believing every story they tell, they soften and reorganize themselves around truth. In this space, intuition has room to breathe. It does not compete with logic, it complements it. It offers guidance that feels whole rather than fragmented, inclusive rather than fearful. You recognize intuition by how it feels in the body, steady, calm, unhurried. It does not rush you toward decisions. It invites you into alignment. There is also a deep humility that emerges when you stop resisting life's unfolding. You realize how little you needed to control for things to work out. How many times you were carried through moments you thought would break you. This humility does not diminish you. It enlarges you. It opens your heart to awe, to reverence, to the quiet miracle of simply being here. As you live from this openness, you begin to trust your capacity to meet whatever arises. Not because you have rehearsed every scenario, but because you have experienced your own resilience. You know now that you can feel deeply without drowning, that you can face uncertainty without collapsing, that you can let go without disappearing. This confidence is not bravado. It is grounded, lived, earned through surrender. Life continues to present contrast, loss and gain, clarity and confusion, endings and beginnings. Letting go does not erase these rhythms. It allows you to move through them without clinging. You grieve without becoming grief. You celebrate without becoming dependent on celebration. You remain anchored in something that does not come and go. This anchoring is your spiritual identity, the part of you that witnesses experience without being consumed by it. It is not distant or aloof. It is intimately involved, yet free. When you live from this center, you no longer ask life to make you whole. You meet life as wholeness itself. And so the practice continues, moment by moment. You notice resistance as it arises, and you soften. You feel fear, and you breathe. You encounter uncertainty, and you trust. Each small act of letting go reinforces the truth that you are supported, guided, and held in ways the thinking mind cannot fully explain. Do not rush this unfolding. There is nowhere else you need to arrive. The miracle is not ahead of you, it is happening now, in your willingness to stay present, to remain open, to meet life without armor. In this meeting, something sacred reveals itself, not as a distant promise, but as a living experience of peace, moving quietly through you, steady and unafraid, reminding you again and again that when you stop resisting, life does not abandon you, it embraces you. And in this embrace, you discover that nothing essential has ever been missing. What you once searched for in effort, in approval, in outcomes, has always lived quietly within you, waiting for stillness to be noticed. The need to become dissolves, replaced by the grace of remembering. You are not arriving at truth, you are relaxing back into it. There is a softness that comes when you stop measuring your life against imagined standards. You begin to live by resonance rather than comparison. What feels aligned draws you forward. What feels heavy releases its hold. This discernment does not require analysis. It arises naturally when you are no longer resisting your own inner guidance. Life simplifies when you trust what feels true. You may sense now how gently existence supports you when you stop demanding guarantees. Each breath arrives without negotiation. Each heartbeat continues without your instruction. This quiet cooperation between you and life has never been broken. It was only obscured by the habit of control. When you let go of that habit, the partnership becomes visible again. There is a deep relief in no longer needing to be everywhere at once. Presence gathers your energy back from the past and the future and offers it to this moment. Here, you are enough. Here, nothing is lacking. Here, peace does not need to be chased because it is not running from you. As you rest in this awareness, compassion expands, not as an obligation, but as a natural response to recognizing yourself in others. You see that everyone is learning how to let go in their own way, at their own pace. Judgment softens because separation fades. Kindness becomes effortless when you remember that the same life moving through you moves through all things. The universe does not ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be present. It does not require that you understand everything. It invites you to trust what you cannot fully explain. In this trust, fear loosens its grip and curiosity takes its place. Life becomes an exploration rather than a battle. You no longer need to brace yourself against what might happen. You meet each moment with openness, knowing that whatever arrives will be met with the wisdom you already carry. This is not naivete. It is faith grounded in experience, the experience of having survived, learned, and grown each time you chose surrender over resistance. And so you continue, not with certainty, but with confidence in the flow itself. You allow life to move through you as it always has, unobstructed by fear, unburdened by control, In this allowing, miracles do not announce themselves. They simply occur quietly, naturally, as expressions of harmony restored. Stay here, in this gentle knowing. Let the mind rest. Let the heart remain open. Let life reveal itself moment by moment without your interference. You are safe in the unfolding. You are guided in the uncertainty. You are held in something far greater than effort. And as you walk forward from this place, remember, peace was never something you had to earn. It emerges the moment you stop resisting who you are and allow yourself to be carried by the same loving intelligence that has always known the way.